Hi there. Okay, so today I'll be demonstrating installing Windows 11 inside VMware in order to run Docker. Okay, so without any further ado, let's start. Okay, so what we want to do is first go down to the Microsoft Windows download page, and then we want to download the ISO. Okay, so we'll click the download here. Alrighty, so now we'll jump over into VMware Workstation. Alright, as you can see we have the blank screen with VMware. Now what we want to do is create a virtual machine. Alright, so we get into the virtual machine and we'll choose the installer. So what we want to do is go into the installer, Windows 11 English International. Okay, just make sure the version is specified in Windows 10 and later. Okay, now what we're going to do is call this, oops, I made a mistake. We'll call this Windows 11 dev environment. Now you can call that whatever you prefer, but that's what I've called it. Now the thing with Windows 11 is you really want to give it at least 100 gigs or more, and typically in a single file. That improves the performance while running, especially when you're using Docker. You're going to be using a lot of images, so you really want to give that as much space as possible. But just for the purposes of this demonstration, I'll just give it the default 60. Now what we want to do in particular is to give this a little bit more memory. I will give this about 20 gigs. Okay, now that's another thing you really want to make sure you've got. You want to have as much memory in your host as possible. You can get away with 16 gigs, but ideally if you can have more, that will obviously work better, especially with Docker. Next thing you want to do is make sure you've got enough processors, or enough capability for the processors. Now, another thing that's important for Windows 11 and Docker is to virtualize the Intel chipset. So that's pretty much a given. Now we'll just close this and we'll finish this. Okay, so now we have a Windows 11 dev environment. Now the next thing we want to do is add a trusted platform module. This is required by Windows 11, and it also requires the virtual machine to be encrypted. So let's just set those settings now. Okay, so the first thing we go into the Options tab, then we go to Access Control, Encrypt. Okay, let's give this a password. I don't know. Dev encrypt. Okay, so notice how there's not much restrictions on the passwords that you can use. Now, like any password, you really have to remember this because every time you start the virtual machine, you'll need to enter it. Okay, so the next thing you want to go to is Advanced, and just make sure the firmware type is set to UEFI. That's important for Windows 11, I believe. Now we want to add the Trusted Platform module, and to do that we click on the Hardware tab, click on Add, go down to the Trusted Platform module, and click Finish. Okay, so as you can see this warning here, as soon as you remove this from the virtual machine, it will remove all encrypted data is unrecoverable. So yeah, just make sure you heed that warning. Okay, so now let's go there. Alright, so this is what's needed for the virtual machine in order for Windows 11 to be set up. The next stage is to actually run the installer, the Windows 11 installer, and and configure it to run Docker. Okay, so what we want to do is start this virtual machine up to install Windows 11 from that ISO. Okay, so we'll just start the VM up, press the key. Yep, and loading. Ah, the wonderful loading token. Alright, so as you can see here, we've just got the installer, so we'll just choose. So because I'm based in Australia, I'll choose English Australia. Let's see. Now I've got the Windows 11 International version, which is why it's giving all these options, depending on the version that you install. Alright, so let's just install this, and let's see if we can resize this window. Alright, we'll just resize this window a little bit. Here we go. Here we go. Now we can enter the product key later. Now in this particular instance, we're going to install Windows 11 Pro. This enables us to use the hypervisor nested virtualization. Not sure if you actually need Windows 11 Pro, but yeah. So what we'll do is we'll install Windows 11 Pro. Next. Accept the terms. Go custom install. Next. Now it'll just get all the files ready for install. Installing. Yep. So what you can do is watch this till it finishes, or what I will do is just pause this recording until it's completed. Alright, so the files are ready for installation. It's just going to install the features, updates, and then I'll continue the recording when we're on the next step. Here we go. Alright, so I'm just going to restart this and we can continue on from there. Okay, so we've just set up the Windows installer, gone through a couple of restarts, just choosing the region, in this case Australia. Now in this particular case, I just want the international US keyboard input method. No, skip the layout. And I think we are there. So we'll just skip this for now. Skip this. Okay, I'm just going to skip the setup where I enter my login details, but yeah, and then we'll get into the Windows desktop. Okay, so now Windows 11 has been installed with the installer. So now what we really want to do is to typically install the VMware tools. So we'll click this I've finished installing, then just click on the VM tab and install VMware tools. Just wait a few moments, I think the installer starts up, or it should, here we go. So we'll just run the setup. So this will basically set up all the auto resizing, clipboard, syncing, and so on. So we'll just install this. You can choose custom or complete, but typical should do the trick for now. Yep, okay, so we'll just install the tools there. Okay, so I'll click finish, and now I just have to restart. And I'll carry on as soon as this is restarted. Okay, so we've restarted. The automatic resize will work when I resize the VMware window. Yeah, so now what you generally want to do is to install all the Windows 11 updates. It should show some sort of update thing down here, but if not, we'll just press the Windows flag and type in the Windows update. This check for updates, and yeah, so just generally get all your updates completed. Once that's all done, then what we can do is start to install Docker. Okay. Okay, so what you'll notice with Windows 11 and Edge inside VMware, yeah, you get these transparent sort of windows, which can be a bit annoying. I think the same thing happens with Brave as well, but what we can do to fix that is let me see, alright, we'll just get rid of that. So yeah, we see these transparent windows. So the way to fix that is we just basically go to this Edge flags use angle URL, which brings up the local Edge settings, and we want to change the angle backends to direct 3D 11 on 12, and we restart Edge. Now you'll be able to see the menu. So yeah, that'll fix up that the Edge issue. There's also another one for Brave and Chrome as well, I believe. Now to install Docker. Alright, well, let's go into and Docker desktop. Let's go down here. Download the Windows installer. Alright, so Docker's Docker's downloaded. We'll open that up. Yep. Now in Windows you want to use WSL2. Essentially it's a Windows subsystem for Linux, and it'll allow you to use Linux-based containers within Windows. You typically want Linux-based containers because they're the most portable. They're often what a lot of servers use. Yeah, and Docker Hub is essentially Linux containers. Right. Restart Windows. Docker typically works fine the first time, but occasionally you can get caught up with some sort of installation issue with the drivers. Just run the Docker desktop, and hopefully this is all that's needed. Yep, accept the subscription agreement. Now it should start it should be trying to start up Docker. If it's not starting it up, then that usually means there's either some configuration issue. Okay, so now we have to install the Linux kernel, WSL2 Linux kernel. So we'll download that from here. Download that. Alright, so we run the WSL update. Done. Okay, close that. Restart Windows again. And we'll come back in a second when it's all restarted. Okay, so we've downloaded the WSL2 update now for Windows Subsystem for Linux to fix that up. Now we're going to just run Docker desktop and see if it starts up. Starting. Okay, so this is a good sign. For some reason the initial startup does take some time, must initialize some files and so on. It's essentially a virtual machine that hosts other virtual machines. Okay, fantastic. It's started. So what we'll do, there is a tutorial here we can start if you like. We can either clone a repository directly and follow the tutorial, or we can skip the tutorial. And okay, so when it's green here, you know that Docker's configured correctly and running. Just to verify it, we'll copy that to the clipboard. We'll open up a terminal, Windows terminal, and we will paste that into there with the right mouse button. Press enter. It'll download this getting started package image from Docker Hub. Then we'll just allow everything. Yeah. And voila, we have a container. Now with this particular one, we can have a look at the image, see log, the history, and so on. If we click on here, it'll bring up the logs of the of that specific container. Now there was here we go. Open the terminal, open with web browser. So this will open it up on port 80, which is just a standard HTTP port. And there we go. So this is running inside the Docker. Now to shut that down, we can either delete it from there and then delete the image, or we can use the command line to stop containers and so on. For the meantime, we'll just delete here, delete the container, and just delete the image or remove the image. Okay, so it looks like Docker's working. Should also be able to see, run the other Docker commands and have a look at the help to see what command line options we can use for Docker. Alright, so I guess that concludes this setup with Windows 11 and Docker inside VMware.